Welcome to Practicum Orientation on Video. When we meet with you in person, this is going to open up more time for us to be able to just talk with you and answer questions and have a student panel. We're going to get a lot of information out of the way up front for you to watch at home. And so you know me, Dr. Melanie Morris.
Dr. Joy Samuels.
And I'm Dr. Denise Thomas.
And then we have Dr. Ribeiro running the camera over here.
Wave.
And
you'll see more of him later.
Yes, we'll switch out. But we're going to try to make this conversational and interesting for you so you're not just bored watching a video. Okay, so sometimes students kind of wonder what they're going to do on Practicum, and they have in their mind what it's going to look like and be like because they visited the site and they've interviewed and things. But then sometimes they get there and things maybe aren't quite what they thought it was going to be.
We're hoping.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about expectations. You could draw a graph that looked at expectations are up here. Think private practice the way that we've set this up. Think leather couch. Think fake plant, no real plant. And you come in and you have your ensemble, you have what you're going to wear, you have the artwork on the wall. That's your expectation, that's what you hope. In your mind, that's going to be the ideal place. And you walk in, and they're asking you to take out the trash, and they're asking you to pick up the phone, and they're asking you to do this filing. Not what you expected. It is part of the learning process. So what you get to do is you ask yourself, where did that expectation come from? Oh, I know where mine came from. In the 70s, there was a cop show. And there was this psychiatrist who was part of the police department. And I remember looking at that cop show going, I want to dress like her, what do I have to do? So we all have expectations. On your site, you got to ask, is this expectation based in what I think should happen, what I think ought to happen? Was I told this? Where did that come from that we expect that? And here's my experience. You get to question, because our sites are so incredibly grateful to have you, they're going to ask you to do things. And sometimes they might ask you to do things that really fall outside. So you get to ask, is what I'm doing now, is this filing part of how you understand what I'm supposed to be doing? Yep. Help me understand how it is. Okay, you get to learn the system. So ask the questions about what you're experiencing. But talk. Don't go through the whole semester feeling frustrated that you've had this amazing expectation, and the way that you've described your experience probably wouldn't use the word amazing. So talk to us. Talk to us about that. We can always talk to your site supervisor to say, according to our guidelines, these are the experiences that we're expecting our students to have. Show me how it is that our students is doing that. Talk to us. Understand that there's going to be a difference. Not once in any career of mine have I ever done what that police officer, detective, or psychiatrist did. Never. It was a cool expectation to have. The reality was a bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've had students in the past who've gotten on site and things weren't going quite as they expected, and they really were dissatisfied. And it may be that you're at a nonprofit who has a pretty low budget,
right,
and therefore they do need you to man the phones at lunchtime, or they do need you to work a shift of cleaning duty. They do that out at Refuge Counseling Center, where everybody has a shift because everybody's kind of equal in taking care of the place. And they like for the students to experience that, so the student knows what it would be really like to run a practice without, a cleaning crew that comes in, because you're not going to have money for that. So we want, like Dr. Samuel said, we want to be involved in helping you evaluate that, because maybe you are doing something that you don't need to be doing. But making sure you have some flexibility in mind of things might look a little bit different than you expected up front.
The same thing that you're going to be guiding your clients through, looking at how they experience something and what they expect it to be. That's what they're going to come into you talking about. I have an expectation that my marriage is this, and my experience is this. You get to experience for yourself what that gap is like, and how you take ownership of voicing that, and then looking at, maybe I had unrealistic expectations to begin with. But talk to us.
Yeah, and I think that that's what I would want to echo is that anytime you have any concerns about your site or things aren't going quite as you wanted them to, just come and please
Yes.
have that open communication with us and with your site supervisor, because they're not mind readers. And one of the things that I think we have the luxury of doing is that we get to do some of creating our own experiences. And so one of the ways that we do that is by using our voice and just kind of vocalizing. And so one of the things that I like to encourage students to do is to think about what it is they want out of their experience, and then to be able to say that. And so if you have an interest in working with a certain kind of population,
Oh,
then
let's see.
talk to
Children?
like children. I love working with children. But if that's an area of interest of yours, then to vocalize that to your site supervisor, because maybe they have the idea that you don't want to have anything to do with children, and or maybe it never occurred to them. And so I think sometimes just by putting out there what it is that you would like to have happen, not demanding it, but asking for it, that then your site supervisor or the people that are involved in your experience might be able to say, well, let's see, what kind of things can we do to make that happen? And so again, keeping that open communication, and being really aware of what it is that you want. This is your opportunity, so seize it.
Actually, when I go over the paperwork at the end of the video, we actually have a document now called our Best Practices Agreement that you will sit down with your supervisor up front and at the very beginning of the semester and work through some of the pieces of this agreement. But the idea is for you to have a place at the very beginning for you to, both of you, your site supervisor and you, to be able to voice the requirements and the expectations, set up a regular meeting time. So we'll go over that more at the end, but that's a place where you know, I want to lay this all out at the beginning, exactly what I want, but then you may have to revisit it during the semester too.
Yeah, and with that, also have that spirit of serving. I think like you were talking about, that maybe answering phones or having an office that happens to be a book room, or, having things that don't meet your expectations isn't really what you wanted, but having this spirit of serving the site that you work at. I think that's an important mindset to go in with, because they are doing a lot for you. You may or may not realize that you are working underneath your site supervisor's license, which means that graciously, for no compensation, that they have agreed to take you on as a liability. That if you were to do something incredibly unethical or illegal, it would reflect on their license. And they are taking that risk because they believe in supporting you and supporting this process. And teaching you to do that. And they are giving up an hour a week, which over the course of a semester is a pretty significant chunk of time. And they are just investing that in your education and your experience. And so I think it's helpful to go in with this mindset of, I really am grateful and I appreciate what you're doing for me. What can I do to give back to you? What can I do to serve you and your site? And just as a way to be thankful for that.
Right. About a year or so ago, I interviewed Dr. Lowry, and one of the things that impressed me about that interview with him was the phrase that he kept saying over and over and over again: first we serve. And then, he was talking about fundraising, and then I'm going to ask you for money. But first I'm going to see, is there a need that I can meet for you? First you serve, first you get to serve, first you get to go in and to say, here's what I can do, how can I do that? So you got to represent Lipscomb at its best when you go in with that attitude. First we serve.